We've got some great titles of things that Mr. Davis presented to me.
Picture this. Detroit, 1998. The Opera House is packed. Aretha Franklin sits backstage, regal and livid, a name on the program she never approved. She closes her makeup case and tells her assistant one thing. If he sings tonight, I walk. The event scrambles to reshuffle, because Aretha doesn't need a microphone to command a room, just a look, a word, a pause. For decades, she was silent about the egos, the backstabs, the betrayals. But in her final years, the Queen of Soul began naming names. These weren't petty spats, they were deep wounds. First on her list, a woman who tried to claim her crown, Beyoncé. It started at the 2008 Grammys. Beyoncé introduced Tina Turner and declared, "Tina, the Queen." The crowd erupted. But somewhere across the country, another queen sat in silence, Aretha Franklin. To Aretha, who had spent over 4 decades earning the title Queen of Soul, it felt like a direct challenge. The crown wasn't just a nickname, it was a legacy earned through gospel roots, civil rights performances, and unmatched vocal mastery. To hear it handed to someone else wasn't careless, it was disrespect. Within hours, Aretha released a rare public statement. She called it a cheap shot and a lapse in respect. Some fans dismissed it as diva behavior, but those close to Aretha knew better. This was about the erasure of history. Aretha had fought to claim space in a world that tried to silence black women, and now a younger artist who had grown up idolizing her was rewriting that story without a nod. Friends say Aretha referred to her as a gifted girl who forgot to curtsy. The next name on her list wasn't just competition, he was once a friend, until he humiliated her on national television. Ray Charles, the duet that never happened again, mid-1970s. Aretha Franklin and Ray Charles, two titans of soul, were scheduled for a once-in-a-lifetime live duet on national television. Rehearsals had been smooth, joyful. Everyone expected magic. But when cameras started rolling, Ray began deviating from the arrangement. He extended bridges, added flourishes, twisted rhythms that hadn't been rehearsed. What was supposed to be elegant became a musical minefield. Aretha tried to adjust, but the performance slipped. To casual viewers, it looked like spontaneity. To Aretha, it felt calculated. Off camera, Ray chuckled with producers. "She's great, but not quick on her feet." Aretha was livid. She had built her career on poise, on control, on mastery. To be mocked publicly, especially by someone she admired, was humiliating. She never performed with Ray again. Not on television, not on tour, not in private. Insiders say she told friends, "He tried to turn a duet into a solo and me into his punchline." The next musician on her list didn't pull stunts. He used sharp words. Luther Vandross, the studio clash that turned ugly, early 1980s. Aretha Franklin was preparing a major comeback. Clive Davis brought in Luther Vandross, young, gifted, making waves as a producer. At first, it seemed electric. Aretha brought fire. Luther brought finesse. But almost immediately, sparks turned to smoke. Luther was a perfectionist. He wanted every note polished, every phrase sculpted. Aretha was pure instinct. She sang from her gut. The tension escalated. The breaking point came during a late-night session. Luther allegedly said, "Stop over-singing. Listen." Aretha stood, looked him square in the eye, and said, "Nobody tells the Queen how to reign." She walked out. The album eventually became a hit, but the energy behind the scenes was radioactive. In private, Aretha didn't mince words. He made good music, but he made it hell to make. That tension was tame compared to what came next. Keith Richards. The insult heard around the world. Keith Richards sat down for a Rolling Stone interview celebrating decades of music history. When the conversation turned to modern soul, his answer shocked fans. "Soul died with Otis Redding," he said casually. "Aretha's still around, but it's not the same." To some, it was just a cranky rock star clinging to the past. To Aretha, it was an eraser, a dismissal of her life's work, her artistry, her relevance. And it came from someone who had watched her revolutionize the genre from the front row. Aretha responded in a rare radio interview with grace and sting. "Some people confuse loud guitars with depth," she said. "Bless his heart. The line became legendary, but behind the scenes, Aretha was boiling. She felt undermined by a man whose entire career had existed alongside hers, often in her shadow. She had performed longer, topped more charts, collected more Grammys than the Rolling Stones ever had. Yet here was Keith, reducing her to a footnote beneath a man who had been gone for 4 decades. Insiders say she banned any mention of the Stones from future appearances, refused any award ceremonies where Richards was honored, never shared a bill with them again, because to Aretha, legacy wasn't a game. It was sacred, earned, fought for. The next artist tried to turn it into one, Dionne Warwick. The funeral drama, Aretha Franklin was battling the kind of illness that drained even her legendary strength. But then a headline surfaced that made her blood boil. Dionne had made a pointed comment at Whitney Houston's funeral 5 years earlier. She said Aretha had been expected to perform, but didn't show up. What she didn't mention? Aretha had been physically unable to attend. Swollen feet, emotional exhaustion, overwhelming grief. To the world, Dionne's remark sounded like a footnote. To Aretha, it was a slap. Years later, Aretha released a 5-page letter to the Associated Press, something she almost never did. The letter didn't hold back. She accused Dionne of blatant lies, of manufacturing drama, and of using a sacred event to stir gossip. The feud between these two icons had simmered for decades. Quiet jabs, backstage tension, cold shoulders at tributes. But Aretha had reached her breaking point. She closed the letter with one sentence that made headlines. Dionne knows what she did. No further comment. Just a velvet-gloved dagger. And the next name? He didn't cross her at a funeral. He crossed her on her own turf, Detroit. Eminem, the local boy who showed no love. Aretha Franklin didn't just live in Detroit. She was Detroit. The churches, the record stores, the soul clubs. Her voice rose from its streets and became the heartbeat of a city. She gave back constantly, hosting benefit concerts, mentoring young artists, repping her hometown in every corner of the world. When Eminem burst onto the global stage, becoming the face of Detroit for a new generation, Aretha expected at least a nod, a name drop, a sample, but it never came. In song after song, Eminem referenced hip-hop legends, rock icons, even fellow Detroit natives, but never Aretha, not once. To fans, it seemed innocent. To Aretha, it was erasure. She had broken barriers in an industry not built for her. She paved the way, not just for women, but for every artist who came out of Detroit with something to prove, including him. At a private dinner, someone mentioned Eminem's rise. Aretha leaned back and said, "He knows who I am. He just chose not to care." When asked later what she thought of his lyrics, she gave one word: noise. No beef, no drama, just a quiet, permanent freeze. Because if Aretha gave you her blessing, it meant something. And if she withheld it, that meant something too. The final betrayal didn't come from a rocker or a rapper. It came from a man with a piano and a smile. Billy Joel. The duet that died before it lived, Aretha had long admired Billy Joel. She respected his songwriting, his command of a crowd, and his love for musical heritage. When the idea of a joint concert emerged in the early 2000s, Aretha was intrigued. It was pitched as a celebration of piano-driven soul and pop. She agreed to rehearsal, cautiously optimistic. It didn't work. From the start, something felt off. Billy was too casual. His jokes veered toward patronizing. During a break, he laughed and said, "Come on, Ray, loosen up. Take a shot of whiskey and lighten the mood." Aretha didn't drink, never had. She had spent her entire career commanding respect without dulling her edges. The comment wasn't tone deaf, it was insulting. She stood up, quietly packed her things, and walked out. No raised voice, no drama, just silence and a slammed piano lid. Later, a close friend heard her say, "He plays piano like a poet, but talks like a fool." The concert was quietly canceled. No press release, no follow-up. From that day on, Billy Joel's name disappeared from her orbit, because to Aretha, respect was the music behind the music, and once that was gone, so was the relationship. For decades, Aretha let the music speak. She was the first woman inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The voice behind respect. Natural woman. Chain of fools. But behind every high note was a story, a conflict, a silence she chose to keep until now. At 76, with the end near and the crown still firmly in place, Aretha decided to tell the truth. Not for revenge, but for clarity, because even queens bleed. Even legends get burned. And sometimes the most powerful anthem is finally saying the names out loud.